The spider madam opened its mouth and began to roar. Hohenhe extended his hand and invoked a magic circle, and not long after several bursts of fire impacted against the spider, the Loris and Sinclair, who were behind, were ready to help him. Hohenhe's eyes were shining with determination. He clenched his teeth and focused. He was not willing to give up so easily. Hibaro drew his sword and began to charge toward the beast. Sinclair grabbed her magic staff and with a confident gaze began to follow them. The Loris began to observe the spider in silence, not knowing how it was so powerful. Hohenhe was somewhat confused to see that there existed a magical beast immune to his fire magic, and not only this but also it was an insect type. With a serene gaze, Hibaro turned towards him and revealed that his magic was not going to work. Common flames would not cause significant damage, and, unless he used the nether hellfire, it would be useless. Moreover, Madam's exoskeleton was too resistant for their attacks to penetrate it. He began to imagine Madam's weak points and his eyes filled with seriousness. He revealed that its legs, although relatively less resistant than the body, possessed a strange ability. If they were cut off, they regenerated and multiplied. Because of this, its only weakness at this moment were the already torn out eyes and certain parts of the body where the armor had been stripped away. While the eyes of Middleborough and Lowborough were shining with determination, they began to run toward Madam. Behind them were Vikir, Lovegood, Merlini and Bakira. Hibaro explained to Hohenhe that although his magic did not work as an attack, if he managed to attract the attention of the beast with it, the boot camp Varangia group would try to take advantage of the opportunity to attack its weak points. With a grateful expression, Hohenhe thanked him for the information and for planning the strategy, but at the same time asked him how it was that he knew all this. With a nervous gaze, Hibaro looked away, and while sweating, he made up a lie, explaining that he had already faced Madam in the past and that what he had told them was the result of the analysis he did back then. Upon hearing this, Hohenhe couldn't help but feel somewhat confused. He questioned whether, by following the plan to the letter, it would really be possible to defeat it. With eyes shining with evil, Madam opened its mouth and began to roar, and Hibaro confirmed that this was the only way to defeat it. It began extending its sharp legs toward them quickly. Hohenhe's attention fixed on it and his eyes widened in fear. He couldn't help but panic since he knew he wouldn't be able to distract it for long. At that moment, Lovegood Merlini began to walk toward Madam. She began to use the magic staff and mana began to emerge from it. While her eyes were shining with joy, with a smile, she began to spin her magic staff. She began to stare at the beast with a confident gaze and thought that with this attack she was going to be able to defeat it. She grabbed her magic staff tightly and struck the ground forcefully, making a magic circle appear. Not long after, vines began to emerge from the ground. With a furious gaze, the beast Madam began to attack quickly using its sharp legs. The vines that Lovegood Merlini had summoned began to call. The spider's attention was fixed on it and its eyes filled with confusion. It didn't know what was happening. The vines struck against its abdomen, causing it to start screaming in agony. While Lovegood Merlini's eyes were shining with determination, she continued using her magic and gave the order to the others to attack. Upon hearing her order, Middleborough and Lowborough drew their swords, gained momentum, and began advancing toward the spider. The Baskerville triplets and Bakira landed on top of its abdomen, focused themselves, and while mana was emerging from their bodies, they prepared to attack. Bakira tightly gripped his sword, and while his eyes were shining, he started staring intently at it, and a powerful mana began emerging from his body. With a furious expression, Bakira began to shout, ready to attack. They attacked using all their strength, creating a great curtain of smoke. While the smoke screen was disappearing, they descended to the ground, began to observe carefully, and did not lower their guard, since they knew that they were not going to be able to defeat it so easily. With a serene gaze, Bakira mentioned that with so much smoke he could not tell if it was dead or alive. Upon hearing this, Highbrow's eyes filled with confusion. Bakira tightly gripped his sword, and his eyes widened with confidence. Although he had definitely felt that his attack had cut it, he was not sure. Not long after, the shadow of something giant appeared in the sky. The attention of Bakira and the triplets fixed on it, their eyes filled with surprise and fear, leaving them in shock. The attention of Hohenhe, the Loris, Sinclair and Granui fixed on it, their eyes widened with surprise and terror. They did not know what was happening. While little by little the shadow was getting bigger, Lovegood Merlini could not help but feel fear. She was in shock. On the ground were Madam's legs. It stood up, and while its eyes were shining with rage, it began to roar. It began to stare at them and started to charge towards them. The spider decided to attack using its sharp legs. While the fierce madam was attacking, Hohenhe created a barrier around them to protect them from the attack. Madam's attacks were so powerful that they began to destroy the ground. Bakira and the triplets started running to avoid being hit. Middleborough turned around and upon seeing how powerful Madam was, clenched his teeth tightly and his eyes widened in fear. It was night and several minutes ago, Vikir met with the Baskerville triplets. With a confused gaze, Highborough extended his hands and questioned whether by following Vikir's plan they would be able to kill Madam. Middleborough and Lowborough began to observe our boy in silence. Vikir turned his back on them and revealed that it was impossible. With a confident expression, he made it clear that they already knew what it meant to face Madam. Upon hearing this, the triplets' eyes widened in surprise. While Bakira's hand was trembling, he began to ponder silently. Hohenhe, who was sitting down, began to tremble with fear. Everyone was afraid of dying. Not far from them lay Anna's body on the ground. Lovegood Merlini sat beside her and held her hand. Not long after, she stood up. Upon seeing this, her friend's attention focused on her. Lovegood Merlini turned her back on her friend, and while her eyes were shining with determination, she turned to her and asked her to take good care of Anna. According to Biker, the scariest thing was having the strength to fight and still standing by watching comrades fall. That's why he had chosen them. Even knowing it was an impossible mission and that they might not win, they would fight until the end. Just before Madam's leg could strike Lovegood Merlini, she extended her hands and summoned a barrier, which blocked the attack. She couldn't help but clench her teeth tightly, as she couldn't believe how powerful it was. She closed her eyes and began to cry, knowing that this was not good. At that moment, someone placed their hand on the ground, and red mana emerged from their hand and began to spread across the floor. The mana made the ground explode, causing Madam to stop attacking. Bakira's eyes widened in surprise and confusion. He could not believe that the ground the monster stepped on suddenly exploded. Highborough was in shock, but then his eyes filled with surprise, realizing that this mana was very familiar. Several minutes ago, Vikir turned to the triplets and with a serious expression explained that when he gave the signal, they should all attack together with all their strength. The triplets remained listening to our boy in silence. With a confident gaze, Vikir began to show one finger, revealing that this was the only way to defeat Madam. Hibaro realized that this was Vikir's signal. He gave them all the order to return their positions. This was the moment Madam had lost the opportunity to attack. Upon hearing the order, they began staring at Madam, and while mana was emerging from their bodies, they adopted an offensive stance, ready to fight. Dolores put her hands together and using her power, applied a buff on them. With a furious gaze, Hohenhe stood up and decided not to stand idly by. Sinclair, who was standing behind, focused. Lovegood Merlini began to stare silently at Madam. Hibaro started shouting, making it clear that they had to attack with all the strength they had left and with the determination to defeat Madam in a final assault. While the spider Madam was recovering from the attack, the triplets in Bakura began to charge towards it. While a powerful red mana was emerging from our boy's body, he began to gaze toward the ground and to stand up. His attention was fixed on it, and his eyes began to shine with seriousness. Lovegood Merlini used her power again, making a magic circle appear on the ground from which vines began to emerge. Dolores applied the light buff to Hohenhe. With an expression full of determination, he extended his hand and made a magic circle appear. He began to charge a powerful flame. The Baskerville triplets in Bakura appeared above Madam, ready to finish it. Our boy knew that someday they would become true heroes. Although they were not strong yet, they had not backed down, and it would be them who would put an end to this battle. They began to charge toward the spider. It decided not to stand idly by and decided to counterattack. Vikir drew his bow, aimed at Madam with it, and began to imbue his mana into the arrow. He prepared to shoot, and his eyes began to shine with confidence. He, better than anyone else, knew that heroes are not born, they are made. He could show them the way, but only they could walk it. Our boy concentrated his mana and shot the arrow. His attack was so powerful that the ground beneath his feet broke. Just before Madam could attack, Vikir's arrow cut its legs. It opened its mouth and began to scream in agony. Seeing that the beast was wounded, Bakura and the others realized that now was the time to kill it. The triplets in Bakura began to attack using their weapons, while on the other side, Hohenhe summoned a powerful flame which hit directly against its abdomen. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part,